Bitcoin is just a database that every participants keep a copy of. The key difference is that updation to that is very difficult or even next to impossible once everyone agrees on a particular set of data. However, addition to that is done via a process where several specialized computers compete with each other in finding a random number, which when passed through a SHA-256 hash function produces a required number of leading zeros. And we must understand that this is a very energy intensive process. As you can see, there are different rules that everyone has to follow for Bitcoin to work. But it's worth remembering that Bitcoin came at a time when US could literally print unlimited dollars, and as a result of which we are seeing today that Americans hold the most number of Bitcoins and the Bitcoin mining facilities in the world. Bitcoin at the end of the day is a network of its participants. This is what makes Bitcoin a Bitcoin rather than it being a Bitcoin Cash or Solana or Dogecoin. Hence, understanding the people involved in the Bitcoin is a far better idea than understanding just the mechanics or being involved in price predictions. So let's go through how different people around the world perceive Bitcoin as. The first groups are the people who live in wrecked economies due to US dollar policies. For them, it's a lifeline, a boon, an inflation hedge, or even a political hedge. The second groups are the investors living in stagnant Western economies. For them, it's either a speculative asset or a long-term digital gold. The third groups are the traders. They look at it as a very high volatility commodity, just like gold, oil, or wheat. The fourth group is the US state and its apparatus. They look at it perhaps as a potential strategic tool, even possibly a deja vu of their executive order 6102, especially in case the entire world rejects any form of fiat coming out of US. However, there are only two groups that have ever pushed Bitcoin into a frenzy of six-figure prices. The first is the tacit indirect involvement of US state, from turning a blind eye in the early days to letting institutional money pour in when it suited them. The second is the community built around the censorship resistant narrative, ranging from criminals to libertarians to crypto anarchists to hardcore Christian MAGA types who hide under the polite labels of Bitcoin maximalism. This group has been the cultural engine behind Bitcoin's rise since the last decade. So it's important to understand this group's psychology and motivations, as we have already gone through the motivations of US state in the previous video. Even the books on their reading list, like the Bitcoin Standard or the Sovereign Individual, bring to light their deep-rooted and anxiety towards their own government and their own neighbors. Their worldview drips of the same ancient paranoia of the fear of kings or the churches from medieval Europe, when they were treated worse than dogs. And so when they fled to America, they held on to their guns as their ticket to independence. But now that fantasy of ours has turned into a joke, because gun ownership today is a delusional comfort, just like the false sense of economic security that they derive by stacking Bitcoin and screaming about censorship resistance. So it's a mix of deep-seated fear, distrust of government, and a relentless pursuit of personal wealth and safeguard against wealth confiscation that has transformed this community into something resembling a cult, buying, preaching, and recruiting others with a near religious zeal. A cult that will be exploited by their own elites.